welcome to a new episode of Mind the Spiritual Guest. My guest today is a wonderful person that has created something that I am very passionate about, but I don't want to give too much away. So I would like to ask our guest, Ariana, to introduce herself. Tell us a little bit about you, and also how long have you been part of the Sense Network community?
Yeah, so a little about me. I'm the founder of an app called Spoke. So we're currently the UK's #1 music-led mindfulness app. We work with some of the UK's best musicians, such as producers, singers, songwriters, rappers, lyricists, poets, you name it. And essentially we train them to deliver proven mental health tools through their music. And we have a personalized app kind of with lots of, ways to, boost confidence or boost sleep or, feel more energized. I'm also really interested in the themes around social innovation. So how can we improve global systemic social issues? Obviously, there are many. My particular interest is in mental health and mental wellness. There's so many aspects to the problem. It's not one, there's no one solution that, our app is not going to solve mental health, but we are one element in what is a network that needs to change. There are systemic issues that need to change to make mental health better. And there's so much more that I could go into. So that's really my area of interest. And I do a lot of work and research and reading about that to kind of complement the work that I do in the business. And then, I've been part of the Sense Network for must have been about maybe a month now. So I'm still quite new. I've had a little look around and everything's really cool. And everyone just seems incredibly creative and smart and interesting. So I'm very pleased to be a part of this network.
Oh, I'm happy to hear. Ariana, your story is very interesting. And of course, we're gonna dwell on Spoke and whatever you accomplished through the app. But I like to know your origin story a little bit. So you say mental wellness is very important for you. How did you get to this place? What is your narrative arch, if you will?
Yeah, so I'll kind of try and keep it as brief as possible. So I used to live in New York. I lived there for a couple of years. I was doing a job in banking, and I learnt very quickly how many mental health issues exist in the city. I mean, in New York, about 70 or 80% of people are prescribed Xanax, and I was as well. When I had severe anxiety at work, started feeling quite depressed. And so there was no, there was no kind of, guidance towards therapy or mindfulness or anything. It was just like, here's some Xanax, and it's very addictive.
Fun.
So I experienced that firsthand. And then I got very interested in wellness events while I was there. So wellness experiences. I'm starting a little bit further back, just so you kind of see the context of where I started. I got very interested in I was in New York at a time where Soul Cycle was really kind of booming, so people were getting really interested in this idea of coming together and not just doing a fitness class, but feeling this immersive energy of a fitness class and actually getting somewhat of a spiritual experience out of it as well. So I started, really becoming interested in what was going on there. And then that led me to start my first company, which is the company before Spoke. So it was called Sweat and Sound. It was a wellness events company. We did big, immersive, multi-sensory well-being events that merged wellness and fitness. So yoga, meditation, mindfulness, all of this stuff with live music. So if you imagine, a yoga instructor would work alongside a musician, and then it would be a hybrid experience. So a really popular event was yoga and meditation with live orchestra. We did those across London and they were sellouts. It was absolutely amazing. However, a couple of things happened while running that company. I learned very quickly that the wellness world, so, the world that hosts all of these things, all of these apps, all of these practices are in the world of wellness. I started to call it Lululemon Land, and I feel bad even saying that, because I don't mean to be rude, because I love that brand, and I think they're really cool. And I think I think yoga culture, it's helped so many people, and it's helped me. So I don't want you to think I'm being rude about that, but you really do still only see a certain type of person. in this world. It's very much geared towards an older, female, typically middle class, typically white audience. And, you know, at the time, I didn't think too much of it, apart from the fact that it didn't seem right. And then a couple of things happened in 2017. So firstly, one of my younger brother's best friends took his life, sadly, when they were 15 years old. And then I also actually, within the year following, two friends' brothers also sadly lost their life to suicide. But so after, you know, what happened to my brother's friend, I saw him refuse school therapy, refuse school counselling. I worked in the wellness world, so I had access to all of these tools: mindfulness, meditation, CBT, coaching, therapy, you name it. You name it. All of this stuff, like, it's not the, but it was so obvious that my brother, his friend, they were never going to try these things. You know, it's, you know, but it's not the tools' fault. It's not mindfulness, it's not these tools' fault. The problem is that they're wrapped in a culture that does not resonate with, you know, firstly, young people in general, secondly, young men especially, and young men make up 80% of all suicides. Yeah. I'll caveat that after, you know, 4 years of researching this. And sorry, this is just a slight tangent, because I always want to make this point. It's not because young women have less anxiety and depression. It's because young women are just a fraction better able to access early stage interventions. So it's proven that, yes, young women equally suffer with anxiety and depression and still need support. However, the solutions that are out there are, and also it's a cultural thing. It's you know, gender, the gender comes into it as well. But young women are just a little bit more likely to take a step, to talk to somebody, to try a solution, to speak to a doctor. And that tiny step early on is it means that the difference 5 years later wide, and that is the reason why there are more male suicides than female. Just that. So we've got a problem here where all of these solutions at the moment, they look, sound, feel the same. They are yogi or they're clinical. Nothing wrong with that, but why haven't we diversified a tool that is tools that are so fundamental to human well-being? We teach people nutrition. We teach people how to, you know, it's important to exercise and go to the gym. We need to be all looking after, and there are millions of ways to eat and do exercise. We need to have the same thing for our mind. So that's why Spoke started. And because of my previous work in music, and also knowing that, and this is another thing, musicians are and always have been the gatekeepers of culture. Always. Musicians are the voice piece of emotion. Throughout history, we have learned most of our songs and our shared wisdom by song that's been transferred through generations. So really, and there are so many musicians in the world, but paradoxically, they're stuck in an industry that is so toxic. They're all fighting for this 1% at the top. You know, there's no, in the music industry, there's no, you know, there's no thought about impact. How do we, the millions and millions and millions of people that musicians can reach, that hospitals, healthcare, you just can't reach, but then there's no thought about impact. Whereas, you know, so if it is like, these are the world's natural healers. So that's why we work with musicians, and we basically bring the validated tools. We deliver it through music and through cultural leaders, and that's the really important part. And the whole idea is not just music. So our app is about music, and it's about culture, and it's about lyrics and sound that definitely will make a difference. So yeah, that's sort of the story.
I really love the passion that exudes, and now I understand, since it's coming from your experience of seeing your friends, like relatives, going through this unfortunate and terrible passage. There are a couple of things that sticks to me. So one of the main tenet of our community is cognitive diversity. We really believe that the richness of a community is the fact that people have different perspective, different way of communicating. So of course, music is very powerful, because it can, like, immediately connect with our emotions. So as it, in some cases, it's more powerful than like simply like speaking, because it affects you deeply. So I have two questions, because I feel these are two more important pillars in what you're creating, but also probably like in the wider context of networks. So one is, why did you decide to focus on music? Why was, of course, it comes from your experience, like your personal experience and work experience, but why did you have this intuition that music could really, you know, be this force for good? And on the other side, what is the importance of community when it comes to going through this healing process? Because an app is a little bit of an hybrid situation. So you use it individually, and mindfulness is something that you can do on your own, but at the same time, it helps feeling connected to a greater network where you can find some kind of support. So I'm interested to know how you conciliate these two in your mind or in your project.
Yeah, no, of course. So I guess there's a couple of different questions there. First one on why music? Second one on community. So the first question is, music has always been a force for good, and it's always been something that heals people. Okay, so I guess if we're looking at the mental health within society, a lot of mental health problems in society is actually emotional health, trauma, PTSD, blocked emotions, being unable to express oneself, stigma. All of these things are emotional issues, and it's where we block all of our emotions in, and then they turn into overwhelm, burnout, depression, physical problems, etc. So that's the first thing. Music, it is the language of emotion. So the only way to heal these, which are emotional issues, like our mind is it's a powerful machine, and we need to train it and look after it and nurture it, etc. But so many of these issues are emotional, and giving people antidepressants and certain other things sometimes is not going to fix the emotional problem. We get confused between the emotions and the mind. The only way to heal this is by actually using things that can unlock our emotion and open. When you get triggered by something and it provokes a response, you feel a surge of energy towards something, or something makes you cry, or something makes you feel like immersed, and you get tingles in your body. That's your body releasing emotion. I personally believe that really the only way we can do that is through art and creativity, nature, that kind of thing. And music is the way to do that. So I do not believe we are going to intellectualize our way out of society's mental health issues. I think we need to use our imagination and our creativity. So that's why music. And there's plenty of research around that, but there needs to be more. People don't we have an imagination for a reason. We create things, and we create music and art for a reason. It's not just for people to be entertained. It's like there's a reason humans do this, and it's because we need it. We need it to feel okay and feel good. So I won't go on that, but I feel very passionately about that.
I can tell.
And secondly, the community question, which is really important. Like, we need a community. We need social network, and we need social support around us. Think about the problem with homelessness. Really, the number one reason why so many people cannot break the cycle of homelessness is because of their lack of support network. Is because of, they're not held by people enough. They are, but in the wrong. So it's so fundamental to have that support. However, we still are living in a culture where there is so much stigma and misinformation and a lack of understanding. And really, most of the hardest to reach people in the world are not going to join a community. They're not going to join something where they can meet people and see people, because a lot of people, and especially the people who are hardest to reach, and this is what I always keep into my mind, like, who are the people that are the hardest to reach? They are not the mass market. They're the people that are most likely to hit crisis. They're not likely to come to an event. They're not likely to come to a shared Zoom where everyone's talking and meeting each other. They're not. So really an app where you can access anything, you know, the kind of experience you need, but in the privacy of your own mind. I think that's, and community is so important, but I think, you know, someone needs to be able to access and feel that for themselves first before they even build the ability or confidence to step into a community and allow people to help them and support them. Because when you're in a really like negative spiral, or you're not in a good way, you're never going to let someone help you. So I think that's something that I always kind of keep in mind. And, you know, we can't change any faster than culture is changing. You know, it's only been in the last, 10 to 15 years, we've become more aware of awareness of our emotions and talking about these things. You know, 20 years ago, people weren't talking about these things. 20 years is nothing for human psychology. Nothing. Literally nothing. Yeah. So we've made so much progress in this time, but I think we just need to be aware that, you know, we still have a lot of change to come, and it's going to happen gradually over time.
I am very impressed, and especially what I appreciate, I use Spoke, and I think this is also a good moment to invite people from the network to try it. So they just need to basically download it and get to use it. So we're definitely going to add a link for these so they can sample that themselves. What I find particularly interesting is the attention to those segments that are not usually like the go-to audience for mindfulness or meditation app. And I understand that, again, this comes from your observation that the people that were needing it the most, as you say, there's like this high percentage of young male committing suicide before even giving out any signal. So what you said is that basically women are maybe culturally, I don't know, have it a little bit easier to communicate maybe this discomfort, and so maybe they can, you know, reach out and be helped. Whereas for men, there are like cultural layers that prevent them to actually say, I might have a problem, until it's too late. So I'm wondering, how did you make sure that the kind of communication, the kind of support that is available in Spoke is authentic and speaks with integrity towards this segment?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing is who we work with. So that's, you know, the Spoke isn't me, it's not my co-founder, it's not, you know, the thing that makes Spoke is the artists on the platform and who we work with and the voice and the music. So really the most important thing is working with voices that care and that matter and that are relevant. You know, that's a fundamental thing. So that's firstly culturally important voices, number one. And then number two, we're also aware that most people, so I guess what we've also become is a way for creative leaders, people who are in the creative arts, to become ambassadors for good mental health. Ooh. So that's something that hasn't existed before, a validated way for them to be ambassadors for good mental health. And the thing is most artists want to be ambassadors for good mental health. They care about it, like everyone cares about it. So, you know, some might put, you know, a podcast out, or put stuff on YouTube, or, you know, do stuff on their social, or like meditation on their social media. And that's all great. However, we've got to bear in mind that's not validated. Artists do not go through mental health training. When they join a record label, they don't get trained in how to talk about things in the right way. So, you know, an album might be a piece of art, but it might not be effective in helping someone deal with heartbreak or anxiety or depression. So that's something to really keep in mind. So what we've done is we've got a team of scientists, we've got a process that we've built with this team, you know, clinical psychologists, neuroscientists, relationship experts, career experts, you name it. There's about 24 different people we've worked with, and our artists will learn through this process how to bake proven tools into their lyricism. So essentially they almost have like a co-writer and help. So they are still the lead, it's still their voice. And what we always say is, if you're an artist and you're working with us at Spoke, we don't want to make the same, we don't want to make anything that sounds like what's already out there. So mindfulness and meditation that's already out there it works for a lot of people, but we're specifically trying to do it differently. And we've chosen you because of your voice and the way you express your art. So we need you to continue doing it in exactly that way, but you now have the added challenge that you need to
imbue
and incorporate this guidance, that has been given by our team of scientists. And so at first, I'm going to be honest, we were quite scared at first. So we were scared. We thought a lot of the artists that we work with would find it maybe, creatively confined. Yeah. So we thought, they're not going to enjoy doing this, because it is different. It's, it's different to just saying, go and make me something, just think of it yourself. But actually, we have had a really positive reaction, because this is a different type of work. They are working a little bit more to a brief, but actually what we found is they've really enjoyed it. And we only have really positive reviews from the artists we work with, because they're like, I love knowing now how I can talk about anxiety in a way that's going to help people. That's not confining me.
No.
That's going to help me for the rest of my career. Like, I now know that if I want to help someone with depression, these are the kind of things I should say, the kind of things I shouldn't say. So what we've actually found is it's a really amazing, almost like a course for artists to go through to just level up their ability to really help people. And once we realized that's actually meant a lot to me, because I personally think every artist in the world should go through
I agree.
You're a big time producer or a rapper or whoever you are around the world, and you've got millions of people listening to your music. Imagine if
the impact you could have.
The impact if you baked really powerful mental health tools into your music. You're potentially going to save someone's life. You never know.
Wow.
Genuinely, I believe that so truly. So yeah, that's
that's beautiful. Yes, music definitely has a healing power, but doing it like by design, of course, makes it much more impactful, and you can really almost like measure its impact on people. One of your main artists is also part of the community. It's Lemsey. We're gonna add a link for him as well.
Lead artist.
He's awesome, and I met him a couple of times, and I can see how much he's aware of the importance. He's basically one of your spokesperson, I think that what transpired is the ability to combine the artistic creativity with the importance of the message, so they build upon each other. I don't think there is any disconnect. It's like they're going in the same direction. So it's definitely working and amplifying the reach. So that's definitely all these artists that you have in Spoke. Of course, it's nice that there is a plurality of voices. I think this is what makes it so interesting. And on this note, I would like to ask you, who are your inspirations, not just music-wise, because you accomplish so much. So I'm always interested to know, and behind a person with a vision, maybe there is some, I don't know, books or person that you met through your life that kind of ignited little creativity and sparks in your mind. Can you think of somebody or some reading you did that really opened up doors for you?
That's a really good question. It's so funny whenever, because I get asked this question. I've been asked this question a few times, and I don't know why. I always find it quite difficult to think of one person or one thing, because the truth is I don't know whether, I'm one of these people that I've always suspected that I've maybe had a mild form of ADHD or something, because I've always been I get really curious about something, and then I kind of obsessively research it, and then I almost immerse in it for a little while. And then I'll do this with lots and lots and lots of things. So, I've done this with a kind of business and learning about business. I never studied business. I just did it. I just, set it up and figured it out and made 20 million mistakes, and then just just kind of did it. And then I just read all these different books. I read I read a book called What They Teach You in the Harvard MBA, and I just remember, because I only mentioned this because I read that when I was quite young. I know that's like, you know, it's not, yeah, it's just one of the many great books, but I read that when I was really, really young, and I remember thinking, oh wow, like that's really interesting. You know, all this stuff you learn at an MBA really is it's the network. You're putting yourself in an amazing network. Well, I can do that. I'll do that anyway. I'll just make sure I'm at the right place with the right people. And I guess the kind of area of like music, because I grew up doing ballet. So I'm actually a dancer, wow. And I love dance, and I think, you know, being able to move your body and feeling music, not just listening to it like, oh, that's nice, but actually, you know, letting it go into your body and feeling it, I think is really important, and it's a really kind of natural part of being human. And so I've always been really interested in that field as well, and music and creativity. And then in the field of kind of wellness, I guess what I love is work like, you know, I don't even know if this counts as wellness, but, you know, books like Women Who Run with the Wolves, and, you know, books that really look at our loss of the kind of feminine nature of the world and our way of thinking, and how obviously that's been, you know, quashed. And that's the reason why women have been suffering and men have been suffering.
Oh yeah.
That I contribute that directly to how poor male mental health is, and actually probably contribute that in a very systemic way to why there are so many male suicides. I really think we have got something so terribly wrong. And and I feel that really deeply. So all the books that are around that field, I think, are so important.
Are inspiring.
Political, you know, activist writers like Bell Hooks. Bell Hooks's work, why everybody needs to read Bell Hooks's work. She speaks so perfectly about the problems with our patriarchal structure, and actually how being the super radicalism of the left isn't necessarily actually going to help us. So I'm very, very inspired by her and her work as well. So I'll give a big mention to her. One book in particular, which is called The Will to Change, which is specifically around masculinity and mental health and love. And yeah, I just think it's something that every single person needs to read, because I know firsthand that much of the world is not even aware of this yet. Most of the world isn't even aware of this yet. And so I'm not blind to think that, oh, everybody thinks. No, a very small fraction of the world has really understood the implications of, you know, what's actually going on and how it's affecting people, and has the sensibility to really you know, work with it and understand it, and then articulate it. So, you know, something else I can't think of anyone in particular, but I really admire people who can take concepts and then articulate them in a way that anybody can understand. The number one problem we have is sometimes not being able to articulate ourselves. I mean, that's actually why we've developed the mood access. It's like, that looks weird, we're doing that. It's like a mood board at the beginning of Spoke.
It's very useful.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's basically, our whole thing is to help people articulate how they're actually feeling, because so actually this is linked to male mental health as well. Emotional literacy is a lot poorer for men than it is for women. And
it's like they're missing the language.
Just missing the language. And there's so much research around this, and actually the Samaritans put this in their report, that a lack of emotional literacy is a factor in male suicides. So it's like, hold on a minute, if people just learned how to articulate different ways of how they felt, that would solve probably half the problem, because you won't feel confused and you won't feel overwhelmed. So, you know, I think anybody who can help people learn how to articulate themselves and their ideas I think are really, really brilliant people. Sorry, I kept on, but do you see what I mean? So it's very hard to give you a specific
Absolutely. No. I think what she said,
that
it's very important, because it has to do with the way it comes across, is that it's very important to give people the tools they need to express themselves. It's empowering. And
yes,
so
exactly.
being able to do this and to model this is absolutely important. So
and
on this note,
I will just add one thing on what you said. Instead of just expressing themselves, gaining awareness and understanding is more important. So there is a lot of talk about people need to express themselves. Truthfully, I don't think that's the case. I actually don't think it's that important if people express themselves or not. I think what's important is that people understand or not. Because as soon as I understand what's going on, I get it. Okay, that's why I feel like this and that's like that. Who cares whether I express it or not? It's like I now can choose whether to express it or not, but I at least understand. And I think there's a very big push for people to express themselves, when a lot of the time they don't even understand what they're expressing. They just are trying to express because they feel like that's going to make them feel better.
Yeah.
But then it's a different type of work to understand.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's an interesting, important distinction. So it's more like getting clarity of what's going on inside of you, and then maybe on a second step you can share that with the world. So it's definitely,
it's a debate. So I guess, I'm sure there's people who will say no, you need to express. So I guess
no, but I think it's important, this nuance. And so I also wanted to ask you, we're almost at the end of this super interesting interview. I would stay here for hours, but I'd like to know, so you co-founded Spoke, and Spoke is thriving. So it means that you actually identify a very specific need that wasn't met, or wasn't met in this area. I'm just wondering, what is the next step or the next goal you have in your mind? What is 2023 bringing you, or what would you like to see happen for you and for Spoke?
Yeah, of course. So we've got lots of goals for this year. So I guess our first thing is we've got a bunch of features that we're going to start rolling out. So we have been pretty undercover. We launched on the App Store a year and a half ago. And then we were kind of, free and testing for about a year, just over.
Yeah.
And now we're basically, we basically need to build more features, and we've got some good insights. So we now have a few, sorry, that sounds quite vague, but we've got a few goals that are driven by different really features that we feel are really, really important. We also have been approached by various communities and organizations about how to give, because we are a consumer experience. That's what I believe is most important, and that's what I believe can create the most impact. However, there are so many organizations, charities, non-profits, companies, communities of people that have a predominantly young, creative leaning workforce that do not respond to current mental health offerings, and they want to give something to them. So we are a perfect tool. We're not built for that just yet. But one of our goals this year is to set up a way to basically give Spoke to different communities. So that's important. It is, yeah. So that's something we're actually we're doing interviews at the moment. We're testing, and then we're kind of building that. So it should be ready in about two months' time or so.
Wow.
And then we're going to start experimenting with different markets as well. So we've been speaking to a couple of big artists in different regions, sort of the US and Africa, and a couple other regions around the world, just to start testing. When we go into a new market, it will always be by engaging with local artists. So that's something else that we're going to start testing this year, because this is definitely we see this as a global.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm Italian, so it's a different culture, but this difficult approach for men to mental wellness is something that, especially in culture that are a little bit more traditional, unfortunately, it's really part of. It's a conversation that needs to be had.
And the last thing I will mention as well is, and maybe I didn't make it completely clear, but Spoke as an app and a platform and obviously I'm just saying this to your community because you're
Sure.
You're in business, you're more like
Yes,
kind of on the business side, but we don't say in our branding we are for men. We don't say that. We're for everyone, and we are for everyone.
I use it. I'm not a man, but
yeah, exactly. Same with me. And so 50% of our users are women. Like, it's not that we're just for men at all. So and we also realize that if we said, this is a solution, it's going to end up pushing some people away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, basically what we are, we know what our mission is, and our mission is what I mentioned before, but what we are is just a very cool alternative to looking after your mental health that feels more intuitive and different to anything else out there. So yeah, that's what I just wanted to mention.
Yeah, you did right. Again, I think it's all about offering alternatives, and you're doing it brilliantly. The last thing I'm going to ask you is now, I'm not asking you a question, I'm asking you to ask us a question, because we have weekly Monday music questions. So I'm asking everybody that I interview to share a question they have with the community. So you can ask any question and the community will answer you. So I will publish your question the Monday after this video is being shared in the community. So it's going to be your own question for the Sense Network. What would you like to ask?
Yeah, maybe a good question would be, like, I'd love to know what your community, I'd love to know what people's song, if there's sort of a song or some music that they feel has been particularly healing for them and what it's helped with. I don't know, for example, there's a song to do with confidence. And I guess what I'd like to, because I know songs are quite directly linked to like memories as well. So I'm not saying it needs to be linked to a memory. If anything, it might be, it would just be great to know what song is someone feels has been the most healing for them in their life, or maybe 2 or 3 songs.
It's a beautiful question, and what I can already imagine is that we can collect all the answers and create a playlist for healing. It's going to be a wonderful way for the community to get together, and as you say, it's very personal, but it's also something that you might want to share because it could help somebody else. So it's a very nice, like domino effect in a positive sense. Ariana, it has been like wonderful to have you here. Of course, you're part of our community as well, so we're always happy when you have any news that you want to share.
Thank you so much, Joy. Really great to speak with you.